So returning number 5, adoption of the minutes. So this is a regular council meeting minutes for September 16th for adoption.
Move.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thanks. Moving on to the consent agenda. So we have 8 items there that we can approve all at once if you would like.
Move A through H.
Second A through H.
Okay, we have a mover seconder. Any questions, Councillor McGowan?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind taking a couple out for discussion if that's all right, if that's how that works.
So what items are you looking at taking out?
Mostly the song I wanted to send to the museum, if that's okay. It may pertain to some of the exhibits that they have on display at varying times throughout the year.
All right, so still getting used to this. So we'll pass the motion of A through H. So all in favor of that? Okay, and so now we are talking about removing certain items from there. So yeah, so you're not removing, you're just choosing any items for discussion. So if there's an item on the consent agenda that you'd like to move for discussion, you just say, I'd like to move item B for discussion. And if council votes yes, then you're open for discussion.
I'm just looking for which one. There it is. Okay, can I move item? Oh, where is it? Minutes H, F, and G, please, for discussion.
So somebody move H, F, and G for discussion.
I thought you wanted to move D.
Okay, so let us know what you want.
D, F, and G, please.
Second.
Okay, and all in favor of that? Okay, so for discussion, go ahead.
If it's okay with with everybody, I'd like to forward the item D to the museum for it may be of particular interest to them on certain exhibits they have. For item F, I'm not sure how that would work and part of the community or part of council, but having that available to sign or to get it around is just a positive move for a human resources perspective, and to ensure that the town of Comox is as inclusive as possible. As our community is full of diverse people, and the commitment towards inclusion seems like a positive step for the culture of the town and the community. And the proclamation is just in the instances of domestic abuse and violence have increased during the time of COVID, and any awareness that we can bring to all forms, financial or otherwise, or physical or emotional, is just a positive thing for all communities.
So it sounds like there was 2 items for action, two items to be action. That was the first and last. So that would be D and G. Perhaps the best thing to do would be to start with D and propose a motion that this item be forwarded to the museum. Council can make the vote on that.
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions on that? So just for clarity, CEO, why do we need to go through a motion to just give this to the museum?
So any action that council takes should be through motion. If you didn't want to go through motion, you could simply request the mayor forward it on. You could forward it on yourself, but any action that council wants to take should be through motion.
So Councillor Bissinger, you had a question on that?
Yeah, just to follow up on Jordan's comment then. So if Councillor McGowan being on that committee for the museums, could she just forward it herself and call it a day without having to go through council then?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so any other further questions on that? So all in favor for D to move that? And that's carried, thank you. And for G, that would be the request for proclamation. Do we have a mover and seconder on that one?
I'll move that.
I've discussion. Or
Okay,
are we just
need-
moving
we
it?
need a seconder.
Oh, I'll
Councillor
second,
McDonald.
I'll second it.
Now it's open for discussion.
Okay, for discussion. So listed amongst this letter, because I wanted to pull it out as well, because I think it's very important, but listed amongst this letter is an actual motion at the bottom of the letter. We're not voting on that actual motion, are we? Because the motion states that this day will be in perpetuity, year over year over year, the same day. And I'm not sure if we are voting on that, if we vote on accepting this proclamation.
CAO, do you have any insight for us?
I'm sorry, I don't. I would maybe defer to Councillor McGowan on the intent of the motion.
I guess, it doesn't have to be every year. We can always adjust that with a friendly amendment. Or it could be every year. It's, I guess, up to the will of council.
I just judging by the research everybody's doing right now and looking in, and I think that it would be, we're not even sure who this comes from, right?
Right.
We're just thinking it's, a solid proclamation, and it does, advance the ideas of a lot of problems that COVID is facing right now, where it's, the equality of women and how COVID is really hurting women in the workplace overall. And so, and more than that. So I just want to be clear. I have a secondary question to this that I can ask around this is, on these consent agendas, when we have correspondence, should the correspondence be included in the agenda?
Should it be included in the agenda package? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because
Yes.
I can't find it in my package. Maybe I'm not looking correctly, but I had to go back to my emails to find the letters that were distributed out.
They should be in there. I'm looking at this specific letter in the agenda right now.
Oh, are you? What page? Jordan?
Page 40.
So it's very interesting to me when I do Control F that it's not landing.
So Pat, if you go to where it says consent agenda.
Oh, it's landing now. It's
Click
landing
on there,
now,
then
but
you'll
it didn't land earlier. Thanks, Councillor Grant. Yeah, that's really weird. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, and this to me looks like it's been sent out to every community and city and town across Canada that they're looking for this proclamation. So I say we do it year to year instead of in perpetuity, as Councillor McKenna said, and then leave it at that.
Sorry, I keep getting ahead of myself. I don't really have any problem with this proclamation, but just with proclamations in general, I think we've seen some of our neighboring communities are sending out 5 proclamations a week, and quite frankly, nobody reads them after a while and they become nothing. So I think you want to be, you want to just really be careful which ones you actually do. I mean, I can't remember doing one in 14 years until Courtney started doing one every 3 days, right? So I don't have any problem with this one, but just one of those things.
No, and I agree. Like across my desk, I get quite a few, and yeah, to understand some of them is a little challenging. So okay, so we have that. All in favor of that? If there's no further questions. All right, that's carried. So action items will be D and G. Okay, and let me just find my spot here. All right, moving down to unfinished business, we have the strategic planning and action items report from October 7th for receipt and
Move.
Second.
any questions? All right, all in favor? Okay, that's carried, thanks. And moving down to new business, we have the regular council and strategic planning committee meeting schedule. That is, the recommendation is for this carry on for 5 o'clock for regular council meetings for adoption.
Second.
Any questions? Everybody's happy with the 5 o'clock?
I did have to remind Tom Grant that it was 5 because he was here for many years and he would have shown up at 5:30, I guarantee it.
Okay, and all in favor of that? Okay, great, that's carried, thank you. And, or for adoption, then we have the Fire Prevention Week proclamation. The recommendation is that the week of October 4th be proclaimed as Fire Prevention Week.
I'll move.
Any comments? Councilor McKenna?
Did you get your pizza?
I couldn't get the batteries.
Oh,
That's actually this weekend. I gave you the wrong date previously.
oh, it's
so
on
if you didn't-
Saturday.
Yeah, if you didn't get your pizza before, try again this Saturday.
Saturday.
Make sure the batteries are working first, though.
That is such a great program. Like that's
Yeah.
so innovative. It's amazing.
Great, thank you. So no further questions, all in favor of that? All right, so that's carried, thank you. And planning report, PR 20-5. This is the temporary patio and parklet program where we have multiple recommendations.
Move the recommendations.
All of them? Yeah, okay. Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, we got a seconder. Any questions on this? Councilor Grant?
Just have one question. I got a letter from the Restaurant Association, and one of the things they were asking about was being able to put temporary roofs on things for the winter and possibly heaters. And I noticed in E, it says no structures, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just wondering if there's, how that works if somebody wanted to put a little roof and a heater underneath it.
Yeah, I had the exact same question and it was highlighted on here and I see the CAO is ready to pounce in, so go ahead.
We're working with the businesses who want to do winterization on a case-by-case basis. So it's something that we're going to be working with everyone on. We don't want to just give blanket approval that you can go and start constructing whatever you want, especially as these may, well, they will be of a more permanent and substantive nature. So we're not trying to prevent people from doing it. We just want to make sure we have those discussions. And when we're getting into some of this, especially when we're adding, heat and something that can cause combustion next to, could be plastic, glass, wood, we get into building code requirements that need to be met.
I noticed in town today, it looked like there was one being dismantled. Do we know if the business community is aware that we're looking at extending this maybe to the planner? Has there been any discussion? I noticed Smitty's, it looked like they were dismantling theirs either today or yesterday, their parklet.
We have been in discussions with BIA that has contacted the business committee. So I would assume that yes, they are, because we've been in contact with the BIA representative. One of the things, the feedback that we're getting as well is it's initially, while people may think, oh, it's just a matter of putting a roof on, getting a roof is somewhat problematic. You can't just get a tent to the right size. It's winter, you're going to have the winds, those kind of things. So I think that there was initial enthusiasm on the idea. And right now we're dealing with 2 restaurants. And one of them is not Smitty's, who expressed interest in winterization.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. And that brings us down to D, permissive property tax exemptions. We have 3 items there for first, second, and third reading.
I'll move all 3.
Okay.
Or can you move all 3?
Do we have a mover, seconder? Any questions, comments on that? Councillor Bissinger?
Yeah, just a question. Like I know we heard from the Dawn to Dawn Society today. So for example, if we were to go ahead and provide a down payment for that house, or even if we weren't involved in it and that house was deemed to be, through Dawn to Dawn, do those types of organizations qualify for the permissive property tax going forward, or permissive property tax exemption going forward?
Maybe to our Director of Finance. Yep.
Yeah, it's any sorry, any nonprofit charitable organization. Council can have a view at that, but typically it's been restricted to hospital organizations, churches, where they're statutorily already exempted for the building and the land underneath it, and then we permissively exempt the area around it. But it is council's choice to consider any nonprofit organization.
Okay, and they have to make the application. We don't just go to them.
Correct. Their application is due early in the year, and we assemble it together, publicly advertise it, and council sees it as they're seen today.
So can I just make a follow-up question, I guess? So then
Go ahead.
if in our strategic planning meeting next week, if we decide to not necessarily go with like a lump sum of, I think it was 60,000 that they're asking, but instead we recommend that they apply for this like into perpetuity, not paying taxes, obviously would be a way larger amount than the actual 60,000. Is that something that, so I guess basically what Clive is saying, that is something that we can consider as a council to do that?
Mr. CEO, yeah. CEO is nodding yes. Okay, and Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, I would cautiously advise Councillor Bissinger that potentially you're opening up the door for a lot of organizations, nonprofit organizations that are out there that may or may not qualify. You know, it might be they have 100 of these residences, and so that one is a precedence to more. Now, of course, you know, if we're just made of money, it'd be easy. But I would be cautiously optimistic about that discussion, you know, or not cautiously optimistic. I would be careful in that discussion. There's a lot of, I'll stop there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grant?
Yeah, I think it's the old no good deed goes unpunished on some of those. But my understanding of our permissive tax exemption is that it's an annual request. So they come and apply annually. So you can't, we don't do it into perpetuity. We just say every year come and apply by a certain date.
Right. Okay, any other further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. And we're down to rezoning an OCP amendment application, and this is where Councillor McGowan will recuse herself. This is the development variance permit application DVP 19-1. So we'll just wait for a moment.
Well, that's where I was going to jump in and see if council would like to have the staff presentation, or if you feel with the staff report and the presentation that was done earlier today, you have the information you need to make a decision. So we'll leave it to you what you prefer.
I feel like I have a lot of information. How does council feel? Do they want to hear more?
I feel informed. Marvin's report was exceptional.
Yeah.
Well, the whole department, not just Marvin.
All right, so council, okay if we just pass on this? Okay. Now, do we want to bring Councillor McGowan back, or?
I think we're still going to discuss if she can.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So
Yeah.
she's recused then. Okay. So Marvin, please. Oh no, the Coles vote notes version. Yeah. I know that was a good one. And so, Marvin, thank you very much for the presentation. And Councillor McGowan's recused herself because she lives in a property that is owned by the developer, if anyone is wondering. Okay, carry on, thanks.
I'll limit my presentation to some of the unique points of this application. It's quite lengthy and detailed. And the unique points really revolve around, this is a property that came into the town. And so it still has the regional district OCP designation, and it also still has regional district zoning. So therefore, if the development proposal includes an OCP amendment application, and that triggers a number of procedural requirements that are unique to OCP amendment applications, I'll just give a brief outline of that. And then some of the different housing forms to answer any questions on the housing forms in the new zones. Okay. So, subject property, you know where the subject property is located. So we are subject to the Comox Valley Regional District Regional Growth Strategy. Purpose of the regional growth strategy is to guide decisions on growth, change, and development within the regional district. Local governments such as ours then have to include in the OCP a regional context statement that identifies the relationship between the OCP and the RGS. We have that, and the proposed development is consistent with our existing regional context statement. So we don't recommend any changes to it. In terms of the content of the RGS, the main features of this development proposal really revolve around the growth management principle of efficient use of land, provide greater transportation choices, reduce public service costs, and achieve environmental benefits through compact growth. And a lot of that's coming in then through the zone. Housing needs report, suffice it to say that you also have to consider the housing needs report now that you're doing an OCP amendment. Our OCP has an extensive section on housing need in terms of a moderate to low growth, and essentially we're going to get older. The housing needs report is consistent with that. So even though the fact that our OCP was done in 2011, most recent housing needs report still says that those assumptions are valid, and that projected demand for increased smaller forms and a wider variety of housing types is valid. Okay, key point here. Key point that's going to be unique to this one, and also in regards to the sustainability provisions, I just want to touch on is the Greenway implications. We have an extensive, in combination with Courtney, an extensive Greenway network in the area. And this also came up in the pre-application consultation where that was of concern. What this proposal does include is on McDonald Road from Inverclyde north, we would not be using our half of that road dedication for road, rather we would be building it out for a greenway. And then Hector from McDonald Road, we built as a greenway all the way to Aspen Road with a future playground, built in a small playground built into that. So this is the ultimate build out. The only point I want to point out is red is the future playground. The plantings on the north side of the Hector Greenway, we would have it constructed a 3-meter asphalt path. On the north side, we just really have the trees put in and ground cover. The idea that future developments to the north would then pay for the more intensive landscaping. The zoning really focuses on increasing the efficient use of land to reduce servicing costs and hopefully also reduce lot prices by reducing lot sizes. In regards to that,
Marvin, can I just ask you a quick question for the zonings? Just because I don't know them by heart, but 3.2 single family, does that allow for secondary suites?
yes.
Or, okay, and coach houses too?
Yes.
And then 1.4 that, okay,
so,
sorry.
Coach houses have to be on lots greater than 500 square meters, and
Right.
the minimum lot size in the R3.2 is 450. So people usually, when they subdivide, they don't subdivide all the way down to 450. So it depends on whether you can meet that 500 square meter. So the R3.2 is an existing zone. It's probably our standard zone right now in terms of every town. It's 450 square meters. You have a little bit of a build in there too of the new R3.8 there is single family. And what that's doing, it's keeping the 450 square meters, but it's reducing the front yard so that you're getting hopefully a better usable backyard. Okay. The R2.3, the R1.4 kind of goes in the opposite direction. There, it's looking at larger lots, 700 square meters, and allowing for 2-story coach houses in the backyard. We typically have not allowed that in the town over privacy concerns on neighboring property. This presented a unique opportunity because it's the backyards where the coach houses will be located are adjacent to the McDonald Greenway, the Hector Greenway, or common space in the future townhouses. One of the zones we're quite excited about is the R2.3. So that's for the front to back duplexes, and the front to back duplexes. So you can only have in that you only have one unit facing the street. So it's a lot more compatible with the single family neighborhood character. It also, compared to a side by side, it reduces the parcel frontage that you need. So it reduces the servicing costs. And so what we're envisioning there is, this is just a diagram, and the gray is showing a common driveway. By having the common driveway, we can service both lots, and then you have one unit in front of the back, and the idea that you're having open space in the back unit in the side yard, and open space for the front unit in the front yard. The other innovative feature is the Bearland Strata, single family Bearland Strata. So that's going down all the way down to 250 square meters. This zone is really designed for where you have parcel configuration that's unique, and you can't put a standard municipal road through. So you can't create the fee simple lots. Bearland Strata, essentially the access way is strata, so it's common property, and people own their individual lots. So in this, to fit in with the character of the existing neighborhood, the lots that actually would front onto Grundman Place would be single family lots, and the Bearland Strata lots would be behind. So I'm just going to go screen and back to Mike. So those points are where you have the zero lot line. So what it allows people to do is essentially build up to the lot line on one lot line, and then the other person can build up to that same zero lot line, and you have a firewall between the two. So you're getting sort of the benefits of a fee simple. You own your own property. You can do whatever you want on your own property, and some of the benefits in terms of efficiency, efficient building heating, and parcel size in terms of a 2-family dwelling unit. And there's a photo that, again, they can be quite, that's even with the new architecture there. So you can see they can be quite attractive. They're not limited to, I don't believe that zone that we're limiting them to 1 story. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Yep.
Yeah, I just had a quick question too. When you said R2.3, is that the same as those duplexes on Anderton across from Sleg that fellow made?
That was a CD zone. That was an initial prototype on it. These would be much narrower frontages, right? And much more of a true front to back.
Okay, so I think we had Pat and then Councillor Grant. Councillor McKenna. Did you have a question, Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Two questions. So one is in the R51, as this slide is being presented, where's the parking for those units?
One parking stall in front of in the driveways. Oh, and some of them have garages as well. So
it's not on-street parking. All of this is flow-through drive. There's no parking on street. Is it indicated as such?
No, there's no parking. There would be no parking on Grumman because of the corner angle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're at a tight corner. And then typically those interior common, essentially it's a driveway. They're constructed at 6 meters. So 6 meters allows cars to pass 2 ways, but does not allow parking within the road.
Right. So to be similar to, is it Lansdowne? Very, very close together buildings, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And my second question is where they have the, and I don't know if it's on this slide, but where they have the 3 cul-de-sacs going through, I know, well, I don't know, but I guess at the public hearing, that will be, we did hear quite a bit of dissension from those folks who've been living in that area for a long time. And I guess there's no other opportunity but to have, I think it's called Labrador. Yeah, there it is there. So there's no other opportunity except, you know, to have that Grumman place go through and the Labrador go through. Is that something that, like, is that egress that the fire department is looking for, or is it something that just the developer came with and we granted?
It was developed with the developer and staff. I mean, the developer was quite concerned. He didn't want a direct linkage between McDonald Road and Aspen, and that's why we required the traffic study. So that showed that we didn't need those 2 high capacity roads to connect up to each other. In terms of connectivity for pedestrians, for reduced greenhouse gas emissions as you drive, road connectivity is seen as a good thing. In this case, we did have originally planned for Labrador to be a through road. So that's why it's called Labrador Drive. Tracker Place, yes, it's a cul-de-sac. And then also then what we were looking at was on Grunman, it's a short road that really is going to extend marginally through. Anybody who in the Bearland strata of the townhouses that wants to not visit somebody in the neighborhood has ready access to Aspen, and Aspen has the light on it, so it would be kind of counterintuitive to drive down Grunman at a slower speed, only to connect on to Aspen anyways, what, a quarter of a block down.
So just my follow-up question, was there any consideration to make it a one-way?
To make Grumman Place a one-way?
Yeah.
No, it's currently 2 ways serving those 2 homes. And it's a local road, low volume. Don't really see a change in that. So no, we did not look at doing one-way.
Okay, thanks. And just my final comment, I really love the Hector Greenway piece. I think it's marvelous. Thanks.
Thanks. And Councillor Grant, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just back to the Bearland strata. And I'm just wondering, is there a strata fee for the road, or who's responsible for that road when it becomes a Bearland strata?
The strata itself is responsible. So they would be having to raise the fees for the maintenance, the snow plowing, those items. And so they would have a strata on it that would address how that is maintained. And so there would be, the nice part of it is it automatically gives a legal mechanism to let everybody know what their rights and their costs and obligations are.
So in 20 years, according to an engineer, or 40 years in reality, when that road needs to be replaced, who's responsible for that?
The strata would be just quite similar. I mean, we have the patio home development, 351 Church Street, a number of duplexes with a very extensive road network in it. And they're responsible for patching, repairing at the end of lifespan. Yes.
Okay, and the CEO have a question.
The garbage pickup in that section is going to be individual pickup for each lot. Is that correct?
Correct. That will be the standard right now. That's what we're anticipating. Just like we do, again, on the patio home developments, existing patio home developments, the garbage trucks come in, people just take their, just like a single family dwelling, to the curbside and they pick it up.
Okay, any further questions? Alex? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Alex.
Thanks. I'm just looking through the planner's report, and I know like in the past, we've had some letters from the school board saying there's capacity for the schools and stuff like that. Is that at a future state, or I guess, can we engage with the school district? Because I'm guessing there will be a lot of like young families there, a lot of like daycare needs, a lot of schooling needs. So just want to make sure we're sort of ahead of the curve with that if possible, even though it's pretty much impossible to get daycare in this valley overall. So just something to consider if we're going to be having more families, more than likely you'll have young families move into this just because of the range of affordability in those housings.
Yes, we have contacted the school board, and I believe that was in the first report. Essentially, what they were not foreseeing any capacity issues in regards to the development of this property.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. So we have we have 5 recommendations. Do we want to do them all together or one by one? You comfortable with them all together? Okay. We have the Comox Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 1954 be given first reading. Why don't we just go through them individually?
I'll move one. I think we should.
I'll second it.
Okay, so number 1 has been first and seconded. Any questions? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. No.
Move to.
Second.
Okay, any questions on number 2? Councilor Bissinger? No?
Sorry.
Okay,
Yes.
all in favor? Okay, that's carried.
Move 3.
Second.
All in favor? Any questions on number 3? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Number 4,
Move 4.
Second.
questions? All in favor? That's carried. Number 5,
Move 5.
Second.
and this is to establish the schedule for the November 4th, 2020, 7 p.m. Public hearing at the Destair House. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And if someone could let Councillor McGowan in.
I'm just curious why we do 7 o'clock for public hearings. I'm just curious. Was it something we've always done? Is it something that's a generally acceptable good time?
Yeah, I think we've been doing it. It allows people to finish their day at work, have dinner, and come to that well rested. How?
Yeah, generally, they follow council meetings too, so that lets us get our meeting done, or mostly done at least.
Yeah, I don't think we have a meeting that night.
All right. So we'll carry on to correspondence. And that's Remembrance Day ceremony request for the flyby.
Move the recommendation.
Any questions on that? All in favor? That's carried. And we'll start with the late reports from members of council. Councilor McGowan, since you had a whole bunch of time to sit there and write what you've been doing.
It's been a busy month. I attended the virtual UBCM, and there were some really interesting talks, although it would have been significantly, I think, more informative had there been actual ministers available at the time, because the election was called just before that. I've been to multiple Destair meetings to work on the reopening plan. Another one tomorrow. We're getting really close to being able to hopefully move forward there. Museum and Archives meeting. They're working on book ideas, which is really going to be interesting. Climate course module 1 is complete and module 2 starts this month. Food Policy Council subcommittee. Unfortunately, I missed the regular one due to everybody in my house getting cold. Today I attended a part of the Walk With Me exhibit at the Art Gallery, which is a cultural mapping project about the opioid crisis. And I would highly recommend everybody go if they can. It's on until November 21st on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And it was, yeah, very, very powerful thing to take part in. And yeah, I believe that's it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Swift.
I attended the Philburg AGM, which was done via Zoom, and they did actually have about 30 people attend, so that was interesting. They seem to be holding their own there with the gift shop, so that's great. And they recently acquired a $19,000 federal government grant, heritage grant, to spend on what they determined. I attended the 10th meeting of the Liquid Waste Management Plan group, which was the group that has been working on the conveyance and the liquid waste management plan for the last 2 to 3 years. So what came out of that was, I don't know if any of you attended the open house today, but those were the options that we have seen before. And I attended the open house for a brief time today. They've had a pretty good response, actually, so that's interesting. Attended the CVRD meeting 2 weeks ago, and we had a presentation from the City Green Solutions, and they were talking about the residential retrofit market acceleration strategy. And apparently, in order to meet all our targets, we have to have 770 homes improve their greenhouse gas emissions every year. So it's a pretty big target, but they think it's doable. We had a COVID-19 phase 1 after action report, and they're just talking about improvements for the EOC, and it's a continual project, and they believe that the regional emergency program is the way to go, rather than have, I guess in some areas, each little community have their own program. There was the infrastructure grant for the mezzanine, which I had talked about. They've got that in, and it's going to create, if we're successful, it'll create 3 to 4 spaces and meeting rooms in the mezzanine at the Sports Center. It's a 73% grant. The CVRD's portion would be $119,000, so we're really hoping for that. Talked about a property acquisition policy and the Union Bay conversion study, and the referendum is set to go on November 28th. So they're doing public engagement right now. Attended the economic liaison committee meeting, which was a group that was set up to be a liaison between CVRD board and the CVEDS board. So we had our first meeting and looked at and talked about ways of perhaps doing some integration with CVEDS. And then there's a 911 full day of strategic planning coming up. So I had an interview with the Allison Habkirk today regarding that. And then our CVRD meeting yesterday, I'm going to let Councillor Grant report out on that. We did code of conduct and a governance session as well. And that's my report.
So with your economic meetings, how is that going? Are you finding some satisfaction with that as we move forward?
Unfortunately, we didn't get off to a very good start, in my opinion, at least. We had one of the directors that wanted to go off the agenda, and it created a lot of acrimony at that level. So we have 2 days of strategic planning around economic development set for Tuesday and Wednesday next week. And then our follow-up for the economic liaison group is on the following Monday, so the 19th. So I'm hoping that we're going to come to some resolutions next week and see where it goes from there.
Okay, and governance is part of that, the strategic planning on, to make sure that things are succinct as you move forward and not bringing in other things? Is what I understand you're saying that there's other, trying to get other questions in there. Is that part of the governance to?
Well, unfortunately, we had an agenda, and there were some things that one of the directors wanted to talk about that weren't on the agenda. So we talked about ways of having those questions answered, but it was done in such a way at that meeting that I didn't think it set a very good tone. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Great, thank you. I'll take you off the hot seat now. Councillor Minions, go ahead.
We had our first hospital board meeting in quite some time with the Strathcona and Comox Valley Regional District, and the two big topics were kind of ones that have come up in past but are still on the table. One of the ones that VHA brought forward was that there be provincial funding for regional districts who are willing to come forward and get into long-term care beds. So that was a big topic for some of the directors, was that they're somewhat provincial offloading going on, or downloading, I shouldn't say offloading, downloading going on. So that was a big topic of whether our regional district hospital board would want to be going into the funding of long-term care beds, and that should be a provincial service. And once we get into it, it's something that our board would have to manage. So it didn't seem like there was much interest in that, although other communities on the island are putting forth plans because they want the beds bad enough that if they put forward plans and are willing to pay for them, they may get the beds before. So there's pros and cons of not taking the services off the province, but our board did not seem keen on getting involved in funding of long-term care beds from a local municipal level. The other one was on the pathology services, which have been being moved from Campbell River down into Victoria, kind of centralized. And it sounded like we had gone from 3 pathologists down to 1, but it was based on vacant positions, not that things are necessarily being centralized. So those are the two kind of issues or challenges that we talked about at the hospital board. And I don't think there was actually any resolution there, but we did pass our budget, financial statements, and some other things that had been not done because of COVID. We had our annual library board also financial statement review, and it came that we had options from 0% to 5% for next year's levy for libraries, for the 39 libraries on the island and area. And the number came out to, I don't have it right here, and I just looked at it, it was 1.86 or 1.87%. So right around what the cost of living is. And that's because they have quite a few capital projects on the go that they didn't want to stop for economic reasons and jobs, and the cost of building is going up. So they figured instead of halting projects, they would keep it at that level. That's one of the lowest percentages they've had in quite a few years. So that was, there was a lot of debate on whether to have 0% or keep the kind of capital projects going, which they did. And I believe that's it, those two. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Grant.
Well, thank you. So I was at the Shakeside meeting with KFN, and then also the follow-up meeting that we Zoomed with them with the Attorney General. Also, I attended the Economic Task Force meeting. Out of that, we took some action. 2 things that we asked for the town was there's 2 new $1 million grants, so 2 different grants for $1 million each that we can apply for, and Jordan's working on getting some applications, and they have to be in by the end of the month, and they're 100% grants, which is really good. There's no matching funds. One of them is to do some improvements at the marina, and the other is for some parking issues at the airport. That's an important one for the airport because they want to look at expansion, and parking is one of the things that's holding that back. So we have those in the hopper. We then went out to Cumberland, and I met with the elected officials on the Economic Task Force, where we pared down all of the suggestions that came from all of the groups and kind of put them into some perspective of 5 different categories. And so what we've got for those categories, and then it's in no particular order, was looking at the red tape at government and seeing how we can make things get through quicker if there's possibilities. Transportation, really how you can move people around and what we can do with multimodal. a shop local campaign, and that campaign could be as much as an island-wide campaign or a North Island campaign or just a Comox Valley campaign. The other one was digitizing your business. This came up on a lot of them. And so that's going to be an interesting one to see how they roll that out. And the other one was daycare. So those were the sort of the 5 sub things that we came up with, and that actually gives the Economic Development Society some real direction to start working on some of these things. So that's a really good news story that we finally got to that stage. I also attended the regional district meeting, so we had a little session from Jake on code of conduct, and a lot of it was, you know, all the things that can go wrong, but a good part of it was just how to have a more efficient meeting. And some of those things were, you know, just like not micromanaging and getting into the minutia of all the stuff, letting staff do their thing. One question and then a follow-up rather than a list of 5 or 6 questions and moving on. And just staying on topic so that your debates can be succinct to what you're trying to do. So that was pretty good for the regional district because they're guilty of all of those. And the meetings really, like, they go on forever. I had a meeting with Chair Kettler there before our last meeting, and we looked at the agenda and I said, an hour and a half tops. And she said, yep. And I said, we'll be there 4 hours, 3 hours and 48 minutes later. So it was a really good session for them to kind of get rolling on that. Also looking at a tanker truck for Denman Island Fire. So we increased their budget. They've been looking for one. They're hard to come by and they have to do some retrofits. So that got increased so they could actually have a tanker truck over on Denman Island. And community resilience, we put in a grant application, and that's really a fire smart thing for regional areas and KFN. So another good one. And what else did we do? For me? Yes, and the MOU for multimodal transportation was the other one that we looked at. And were we looking for a grant for that, I believe, early on? Yeah, so that's going to be coming to us. So that's what I did.
Yeah, thanks. Is a multimodal the one that's been going for a few years that David Frisch is chairing along the Dyke Road? So
Yeah, that's the one. But that's just one project in it. They're looking at things in that light. So,
is there much movement on that? The Dyke Road multimodal?
I'm going to say not a great deal since the last time we talked. I think they're looking at plans and ways to make it work, but it's one of those ones that moves slowly along. I think it would be a great project, but yeah, it's slowly moving its way.
Yeah, because I saw on Facebook one time that Councillor Frisch had made mention that it would be great to see a path down the Dyke Road. And I questioned, I said, aren't you the chair of that? And there's no response. So yeah, I think the communities are looking for something along there. So it'd be nice to see that. Thank you very much. Councillor McKenna.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so I attended the Community Justice Center board meeting. It was an informative board meeting. I also participated in the CAO performance management process, which was really a strong process. Also met collaboratively with Comox First Nation, as Councillor Grant indicated. Today I attended the Comox Valley Coalition to End Homelessness meeting. And they had a presentation to leaders on the COVID response to housing needs. And so there'll be more to come there as they want to reach out to specific municipalities, including the town of Comox. And then today I also attended the local hero awards, and I was actually humbled to be awarded the award of community builder. So that was really nice just before this meeting. Something put on by the Comox Valley Record and lots of local sponsors in the community. So it's kind of fun.
Great, thanks. Congratulations. Councillor Bissinger.
So Alex sent a note in the chat saying that Maya is having something going on right now, but she also attended the hospital meeting with Nicole and reviewed the financials for COVID.
Okay.
I assume at the hospital meeting.
Thank you. And for myself, in no particular order, I did attend a BIA meeting, and we're going to be talking next week. We're going to be talking about what Halloween looks like with the downtown merchants. And so we'll have more for that on the next meeting. There was, now, Councillor McGowan, you might remember the actual name, the dinner for the homeless, vulnerable. Do you remember what that?
But enough art, eat.
Yes, I went to that. And it was interesting because some of the folks had stories that they shared, and it was raining cats and dogs. And so it really put a big exclamation mark on the challenges that they face when we were standing there under the tent and then got into our vehicles and they dispersed with their belongings on their back. So that was it was good to hear. Went to leaders lunch with the other mayors and the wing commander and Chief Nicole Rempel. There was a Zoom meeting that I did attend to with the coalition, and there was a Zoom meeting, the Coalition Dead Homelessness. There was a Zoom CBEDS CBRD discussion that I participated for about a half hour. So as you all know, I've been meeting with each councillor to talk about where we are in the middle of our term and the end of our second year term. So I'll have a few more that I'll be speaking with, and then we'll wrap that up. I attended, as Councillor Grant said, the Shake Sides KFN discussion in person at Shake Sides and the meetings that we've had following that. And as usual, many phone calls and emails that I deal with daily. So that is my report. And
Does BIA on Halloween and what they're going to be doing with that? Has that come up yet?
okay, so we talked about that at the last meeting, and Haley Dewhurst, executive coordinator, her and I were speaking today, and they're going to be meeting in the next couple of days with some of the downtown people, and we'll have a way forward next week. The 13th is the next BIA meeting. So not sure what Halloween will look like downtown at this point. Yeah, but I'll report out. And I'm sure, you know, we will have it out on through our communications person if there's going to be something, and the BIA will be doing that as well. So that finishes that. So now we just need a motion to go back in camera and exclude the public.
Move.
Second.
All in favor? All right, that's carried. So we will go in camera.